the Strength of America podcast.
Welcome to episode 28 of the Strength of America podcast. I'm Bob Davis.
Bobby Davis.
Today we want to talk to you about, we're kind of 3 weeks into our summer camp, 7 weeks in, seeing some different things posted and brought to mind. We saw something a couple weeks ago, Lee Taft put together the speed guide, which was, had a lot of great feedback from people. And really it was about, when do you cut an athlete loose? Our goal is always to help our athletes get faster, get stronger, speed. But for us, it's also about helping them to be a better teammate, be a quality person, give back to the community, do so many things beyond that point. Well, there reaches a point, and Lee brought this up in his, which I thought was great. When do you cut an athlete loose? What do you happen with him? I think there are a lot of people saying, well, you can't, you still have to stick with him and go. But understanding the point, Lee and I have been doing this for a lot of years, and we always are trying to help kids. But I've always drawn a point where, and unfortunately I've had to do this a few times where we've cut a few athletes and had to stop them from the program. But literally after 28 years now, 29 years, I can only think of a few times I've really had to do that. But when it really draws at a point where it takes away from the other athlete's experience, that they're not getting better, we're having to constantly go over instructions because we know what they're doing. They're just busy, chatting or looking around, and we have to take that extra time when athletes could be working on drills, working on mechanics, keep progressing and moving because they want to, and we have to stop and correct an athlete or get on them because they're busy talking or doing something. That there is a point, and that they really drain on the others coming into it, and they frankly take away from the experience of what's supposed to happen. Now I can tell you, one in particular comes to mind that happened a few years ago. I had to cut loose as a high school athlete, and what happened at that point, it was a combination of, just really bad experience going on. He was a good athlete, but tend to think that he could just do whatever, take shortcuts at different points, and it was okay and it would always work. Well, it didn't, and it ended up really taking away from the others, and then started to draw some of the others into his thinking of, it's okay to just kind of, just put through the paces, don't worry about it, it'll be okay. Well, not only did I had him stop from our conditioning program and said, look, it's not going to work anymore. But that same week, he also ended up getting dropped from the basketball team. Now, it was a hard thing to go through, and believe me, I had, tough nights thinking on that ahead of time, going, but realized you had to have that happen. Now, the thing that made me feel much better about it is, boy, by that next year, that summer actually, a few months later, he came back asking to get back in the program for conditioning, wanted to prepare for basketball, wanted to be better than he ever had. And I told him I'm happy to do that. However, we had a list of things I needed him to do. And a big part of it was he had to be one of the leaders out there in that camp. Set by example, see what's going on. And happy to say he came back better than ever, did a great job, and now after high school is playing ball, college and doing things after, and he's doing great. That's what I want to see them get. I've always told my athletes, I'd rather you fail in front of me, collapse or something happen, rather than you sit in that dorm room all by yourself without a support group around you, and then you feel like you can't do it, you fail, you've been cut from something and don't know how to deal with it. So, I think that would be great to kind of throw this into it. So what are some of the things that bring you into this topic with conditioning camp this summer?
I think just some of the things that I'm noticing is it's just tough at times. We go through our field charts and handle those out. We do it a couple times through, and I have some groups that by the second one you can tell that they're starting to get it and they're starting to make improvements and they're starting to buy in. I have had another group though that it's just been hard to get the message across. I don't know if it's the message, maybe how I'm getting it or something, but it just seems like as we're going through, I can't get this group to buy in to get the fuel chart done. We're on the second round. We only had a couple kids that did not have to redo it, so it's a majority that are having to do a third one. I don't have that happening in my other camps really. So they're not buying into that. They're not taking care of that. Their sleep, they're doing okay on the sleep. Usually that's not a big problem over summer for most people. They got a lot of time to be sleeping a lot of hours. I think the biggest thing is just the consistency of when they're going to sleep, when they're getting up on a daily basis. Are they getting up at a decent time so they can get some meals throughout the day and be prepared for camp? Water isn't usually too big of an issue, I find out, but the main thing is they got the water to sleep, but as they're going through, the sleep's not consistent and they're not getting the food, so they're not retaining the water, and the food's affecting everything coming down. And outside of that, also, I'm not seeing this group really do a whole lot extra outside, and by that I mean doing some foam rolling, doing some stretching before the camp starts, after the camp ends, coming in and do some extra technique work. I think that's the biggest thing for kids to realize. Just because you come to camp doesn't mean that's enough. Okay, oftentimes, and I hear from Zach Evans, a guy who talks a lot just about going the extra mile. Champions do the extra little things. And I think that's where I've been finding some struggle to where these kids come in, they buy into the program, they work hard for me when they're with me. But it's all the other hours outside of the day that they're not doing a very good job to make sure that they're prepared for camp, they're recovering from camp. There's only so long you can go to where you can push against that wall. But if you're not preparing for it, are you really pushing past your limits, or are you just running into that wall every time? And then when you finish camp, are you working on your recovery right away? And by that, I just mean, are you getting your meals? Are you getting that water back in you? Are you getting good rest? Are you doing some stretches, some light things that kind of cool and bring you down? Yeah. And I think that's where these kids got to work on putting the whole picture together, having some discipline and some accountability on their own. That, when coach isn't around, the teammates aren't around, are they taking care of the things they need to be doing in order to get better? So.
Well, I think that's just interesting points with that going along. And I think this message, we wanted mainly for our athletes to get into it. Of course, our parents and coaches are nodding their heads. They're going, yeah, I've experienced that. We've seen that going on. But our athletes, we want them to understand as coaches where we come from. Because I can tell you, as a coach, there's nothing better than working with a kid that is given everything they've got. They're following the plan. They're eating. They're getting the rest. We see them. We get there, and they're ready to go. They're done their prep work. They're getting set up. They're loose. So at time, they're ready to go, and they're picking up and wondering, what else can I do, coach? What can I do? That's awesome. And yes, it's great to be a part of these kids that you work with, become champions and champion teams and all that great. But that's always been a secondary byproduct for us. That's great. But for us, we want to see these kids going. I love seeing now second-generation kids come to our program. The parents loved it so much. They come in, the kids are getting it. They're buying into it. They're getting better. Or I'll see them at a ball game, and they're going, hey, coach, we're still not drinking sodas, or we're doing this, or that's great. Because again, we're not going to tell them you can't do that stuff, because what's the one thing we want to do if somebody tells us we can't? They crave that all the time. But they understand the importance and how they feel when they're eating right. And that's a big part of our stuff. And I think so much, it's been funny watching even the transition with Bobby. I mean, Bobby's been doing this with me for a lot of years, since he was a young guy going through and coaching with us from his high school and college days. But one of the first things I remember with Bobby coming back into this mode as a coach was understanding now dealing with that frustration when you're a competitive collegiate wrestler and you're dealing with kids that just want to go out and have fun and they're not that concerned about winning. It's a different mindset to get in to go there. And like I told Bobby years ago, of all my athletes, if you want to be here to work, we're going to help you and give you all that we have. However, you tell me you want to be a champion and you want to do that, and we see that you're not eating right, you're coming to practice late, you're the last one to get in position to move when we're doing drill, I'm going to be a little harder on you. We're going to get that because we expect more. You've already set that ahead of time by saying that. Now, you come to me and say, I never played football, I want to try it, I just want to have some fun. Great, we're going to treat it that way. We're still going to work on our speed and our conditioning and teach you how to eat and all of that. And hopefully through that process, you understand, man, now what can I do more? I'm enjoying it, now what can I do more? And then you have some that say, well, I did that was fun, I want to do something else. That's fine too. We've got different expectations for you as you go into it. But that's a part we want our athletes to understand, that you have to figure out what you want out of it, and you tell that coach you want something, you better follow what they're trying to do to get there to that point. And like Bobby talks about different groups, you have some groups that get it, some don't, and depending on who's in that group, that could make a big difference. But I think just flat out finding out some of these kids deal well with, like for mine, I had some of them that didn't turn in the field chart when they needed to, and they owed me 50 split squats where they're down the knee, jumping, and they get to 48. If you stop, you go back to 1. So we keep going. Next day, you know what? Yeah, they're right. Food chart showed up. So they get it. Others, that still won't make a difference. I'll do it. So I've got to find out, okay, what's the reward I'm going to give you if you do this? It's not always, here's a penalty if you don't, but okay, if you do this, I'll get that set up. We're dealing that with my grandsons. We got one, you can say, okay, if you do this, if you don't do this, here's what's going to happen. And another one, I've got to say, well, okay, if you do this, here's what I'll do for you. You've got to find that way to do it. And that's what we do as coaches and parents. It's the same thing. You have to find it. how to work with that group and how to get them involved in it. We'll do that. But I can tell you also as an athlete, if you still choose to not do it and not get involved and you drag a team down a little bit by their training and stuff, be prepared for someday they're going to cut you, because nothing different happens in a job. If you're not doing your job, you're at that work and you're showing up late and you're doing things and you seem to think you're entitled and it's okay because you want to do it and you're having fun and you're a good guy. Sorry, they're going to cut you loose there. So again, I'd rather us coaches step up. Let's teach these kids that and give them the penalty. Let them understand it. We'd rather them at an early age figure that out than, again, sitting in that dorm room all by themselves or in that job and they've got a family and now all of a sudden they're not doing their stuff. They don't show up or whatever. They lose their job. Now what? It always hits me when I see teen suicide or these college, kids that commit suicide in college. They're so depressed and they go through things. And all I can think about is they've been, there's so many other factors. I don't want to simplify it anyway because this is a serious problem. But I sure don't want to feel that something happens to one of my athletes like that they felt they had nowhere to turn, that was it. So we do that. And even if I let somebody go, I'm still in contact with them. I don't just cut them loose because we want to help them understand that. They're responsible for what happens to themselves. And they've always got somebody there. And that coach out there that just is going to flat out cut you loose and, no warnings, nothing going on, they're not there for you anyway. Find that person. And as parents, hopefully you're spending the time learning who your coaches are that are working with the kids. You're watching some practice. You see how they interact. You talk to some of the other parents. By being involved and being a part of that doesn't mean you have to be there all the time. But man, I sure wanted to know who my coaches were that were working with our kids growing up because they were spending an awful lot of time with them. And sometimes during the year, they were spending more time than I was with the amount of hours of practice time. So I think it's an important part to figure out as what they're doing and what they can do to be a part of it. Expect more from themselves.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we realize that. As I think about cutting and different things, I think back on Coach D back in the day and some different things, my high school wrestling coach, and just a great example that he set for me. And I think it's great the lessons you learn, especially going through when a coach comes in and sets expectations and they stick by it. It really resonates, especially when one of the kids that gets kicked off the team is somebody who would have been returning medalist, for wrestling. He could have been definitely a state champ probably, but didn't follow by the guidelines that were set and had some different things going on and was let go from the team in the middle of the season. And I think that was not too long before state. So it was a big decision. So, and after that moment, everyone on the team knew that no matter if you're the best or not, you had to make sure you stuck by the guidelines. Okay, you were doing the right things and what coach wanted. And the message was clear. And our program took a big turn in the right direction after that. So I think, and I know it's hard at times to stay accountable and you just feel like the bad guy and you don't want it all the time. But sometimes I've heard from other coaches that sometimes you're going to hate me and other times you're going to love me. But after the long haul, you'll know what the reasons were for. Maybe not at the moment. But I think that's the biggest thing that, thinking about some of the gems that you said at different things and realizing that having those kids come back to you later on and say some different things or some different messages or thinking about, making an impact on these kids. So especially like if they got a family later on in life, they don't just coast through it because, there's so many people looking for different jobs. There's always somebody knocking at the door. Just making sure that we try to prepare them in ways that they know that, hey, this is the right path, or this is what I should be doing to get better. I can't get stagnant, otherwise I might lose my job. So I think it's good while they're young to learn those habits, because when you start to get older, it gets real hard to fix those habits and change those. So I think that's great if we as coaches and parents and family, community, whatever, can stick to those hard decisions. Because I had a lot of years with him coaching me. He was real good at guilty statements. So saying things in a certain way to make me kind of feel guilty and think about it, and then I go and make the right decision. And you need those at times because you don't always want to do things, but that's life, that's a job. There's going to be a lot of things you do not want to do in life, but you have to do them just because that's what you got to do. So I think if we can stick to that, hold each other accountable, hold ourselves accountable, and know that, hey, I'm making them do this now, and they're having the consequences now, but if I stick to this, it's going to build their character a whole lot.
And that's the big thing as coaches we got to figure out is that, yeah, it's important to get that championship and go after it, but man, you're dealing with 12, 14-year-old kids. The goal is, and we want them later. We see them in their 30s and 40s and stuff, and they've got good families, they're respectable in the communities, they're giving back, they're doing more for other people. That's awesome. You bet, getting all the medals and all that kind of stuff away, that's awesome, that's terrific. But that doesn't last that long either. Very few of them get to do anything past high school. The ones that can get to college and compete, that's great. And then into the pros, but that's such a small number. You've got to think big picture of what you're doing with these kids. And like Bobby said, there's so many different ways you can approach that as a coach. I want to make sure you understand that, because there isn't one fix for everybody. It may be that, hey, just throwing a little comment in that makes them think that, throws a little guilt into it, fine. Sometimes, I've always taught our kids and our athletes, all of them, people learn typically basically by two ways. Either by listening, observing, watching, which Bobby was real good on that, kind of figure things out. He let other people make the mistakes, but he saw it. He would fix and get on that path and move on. And then others, like me, learn a little bit more like with the 2x4. My daughter and I are really good at that. I give her a hard time about it because we learn by that 2x4. That sometimes I wasn't listening, we would just smash right through and think it's going to work, or we need that reality. And the kids are finding out too that man, I'm not eating right. I can figure, okay, I don't feel that good. I'm doing great. And then others, we had to pick up the intensity of the conditioning class last night because I still had half of them weren't eating the way they needed to. And we still watch it. We're not crazy. Nobody threw up. We weren't doing stupid things. However, the pace, the intensity, and the drills that I put into that core and conditioning work made them work. They were fatigued when they finished. And I had the ones that had eaten their 4 meals before camp with protein stand up. Every one of them looked good. The ones that were dragging were the ones that only ate a couple of times that day. So it was an instant feedback, that 2x4 to them. That, crap, I need to eat because these guys look pretty good. They were running circles on me out there, and I was dying. So they'll get it, and I can guarantee today's workout and tomorrow will be much different because they'll figure it out. That's what we need sometimes is that 2x4. That's okay. But find what that is, or that reward, or whatever angle you've got to do. Try a few different ways before you cut somebody loose. And since we run a youth program, I will also talk to the parents before I cut them loose, because sometimes it's just a parent at that point. They've got something else at home, can be that carrot to help get them on track. I don't care. That's what I want them to find, that way to get, or what we're after is great, not just to cut them loose. But if that doesn't happen, then that's the next step for me is the parents. Then after that, if nothing's working, see you later. But like I said, I've only done that a few times in 29 years of training, so that's pretty good. That's a very far end of it. And I know one of them flat out came back and was better than ever because of it. And the other two did some other things were okay, but they were okay. I lost contact throughout the years, so I don't know what happened. But we've got to do what we can as coaches to get it. But as athletes, you need to do your part. You tell us you want to be a champion, you want to do it. You better not cut corners. You better be there on time. You better be doing your prep work to get ready by eating, hydrating, sleeping, everything else, and focused on what the drills we're doing. I can't stand we're doing a drill that I've got 10 guys in line, and the number 8 guy gets there and doesn't know which way we're running or what we're doing. You've had 7 kids to watch, and we teach them always. If you're waiting to go, your eyes are on the athlete moving, because you're going to pick up things right, wrong, bare basics. You're going to know what the drill is. But the other one is you're going to learn why that kid slid when he got to a corner, because his leg was too straight. He slid. He didn't drop his hips. Didn't create power, so he had lazy leg when he turned. All of these things, our kids learn and figure that out. They can pick it up much faster. The nervous system works much better for it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you see your kids and stuff going on, and anything that they're engaged in, they're going to do 100%. Anything they're not engaged in, it's going to be kind of halfway. So if they can just be more engaged in what they're doing and immerse themselves in what they're doing, they'll find out right away that they'll start eating better, sleeping better, watching their water. They'll start doing some stretching because they'll be a little more in tune with their body. They'll start paying attention to drills and picking up things quicker because they are engaged, right? So just try to find ways that you can engage and immerse yourself. Like our coach spoke last night and finished off with our football group. after we had to talk about some things, and they're learning. We got a young crew. But he said, every little thing you do here in the weight room as we're going through, every little simple band exercise, every little neck deal that you're doing, the littlest of exercises, okay, if you cheat those reps or those exercises, hey, that's going to show up in season. Okay, if you would have done that thing a little bit better, if you would have executed everything on that program, everything that you did on that day 100%, then we wouldn't have missed that play. But he said, these little things you start cheating here and there as we go, they're going to show up in season. So when you find that misplay, that missed tackle, or whatever is going on, just know that was those habits back in the day as we started to prep for the season. So I think more people need to realize that. They take that for granted and think that really doesn't matter. But if you build bad habits early in the preseason, you're not going to all of a sudden have good habits when you get to the end season. Okay, we're creatures of habit. So just keep building those, keep attacking it. And just like I tell my kids, just find a way to get a little bit better every day. It's really not that hard to get a little bit better every single day. You just got to have the want to get better.
Well said. Every rep counts, and it does. If it's not doing anything to get you better, why are you doing it? It's a waste of time. So I think a big part, that's what we're talking about Coach D, back with wrestling in his high school days, and he's now over at Mesa High School doing a great job with those kids getting in there. But, he always said, which I took to heart, that this is a work fair, not a welfare program. It's his big thing. We're not going to just hand things to you. You're going to work for it. You're going to earn that getting into it. And I think that's a big part to get them understanding the program is we're here for you. We'll do anything we can as a coach. And that's what we're setting up. But, boy, you're going to work for it. Going to do it, and boy, how much more do you appreciate? I know we've heard that from parents or other. You want to borrow some money or do some things. Now you appreciate it more. Go earn it. Go get it set. And it's like, yeah, right. Come on, just give me the 20 so I can go get that album. Or I guess they're not albums anymore. They're not even CDs. I guess they're down. Okay, never mind. Anyway, go out and work for it. You'll appreciate it. Why you do when you go out and buy it? That's one of the first things we did. I mean, when I got my summer job, first check I got, first thing I want to do is take my folks out to dinner. That was so exciting to me to have that, to be able to pay for dinner and stuff like that. It was kind of cool. And you appreciate those things. As a quick side note for you coaches out there, something else that we do to help these kids figure out where they're at and be accountable for their work they've done over the summer is they always get at the end of the season their pre and post test to see what they've done on their vertical jump, their broad jump, their speed, agility, all of those tests. But what we set up a little bit different is in IELTS, we'll put down what the average for each of those increases were for the whole group over the summer camp. So they'll get to see their work. Yeah, I increased, 2.5 inches on my vertical jump. That's awesome. Well, that's great. But you know what? The average for the camp was 3.5 inches. Well, maybe it wasn't as good. So that's where those things that you did in every rep, did you actually create power, push on those boxes, a hard move, the hard leg driver? Did you just kind of run and go through the motion? You put the effort into every rep because we're going to give you proper rest time to produce power and our strength movements and all of that. But if you're not actually putting that effort into every one of those, it's going to show. Yeah, on a side note, you may have that kid that's putting the effort into every time he's doing it, but you know what? He's not eating right. He's not sleeping. So his level of output is here. The kid that's eating right, sleeping, his energy output, they can both put 100% giving all they have every rep. But the kid that's eating, sleeping, preparing is going to be able to put a better energy output. Who do you think is going to have better results at the end of that testing? They both are going to improve. But that kid that's putting the effort in and eating and preparing is going to have much better output. So again, it can show you on two things. For that athlete, they've been not eating right. You can show them, well, look what happened to your results in here. Yeah, you worked hard, but now imagine if you ate, hydrated, everything you wanted to do on the beginning that you needed to do. How much better would you be at this point? So that's okay. Fix it now, and let's get going to the next point. So that helps all around, letting them see that's great you improved, but to me it's not good enough. That's like giving them a trophy because they took part in the game or played. Not enough. We want them. The participation is not enough. We want them to give extra. We want them to be better than that. And yeah, some win and some lose. But where are you out of the pack? Are you in that average, below, or are you above average? That's what we want our kids to be, that above average. Great. Good. All right, appreciate it. I've got a couple more things we're going to send out. I'm going to do one more video this week for you guys. We're actually doing a couple of drills, but I'm doing one that's how to eat like an athlete because we've had some of the parents asking. They don't hear all the stuff I talk to the kids about with the fuel charts. This is going to be specific to our Strength of America fuel chart. how to fill it out, what it's about, what we look for, all of that. So if you're not sure of that, you want to check that out, definitely get back to our YouTube page, the SOA Podcast, and just have to type in how to eat like an athlete on our search bar, and just look for it. It'll be in this week that this comes out as well. If you're not already part of this page, make sure you like it. You hit that bell for notifications, so every time we get one, you'll get the notification on it rather than hope you come across that information. And like I said, it's parents, it's coaches, it's for kids, all this information that we're going to get out to it. We still have 5 weeks, 4.5 weeks.
Week 3.
Week 3. So we got 4 weeks to go. So if you're not involved in our camps yet, you want to get in before you get going into football, soccer, your fall sports, give us a holler and see. We've got some of our times are already full booked, but we may have like 4 more spots between camps that we can get somebody in. So again, if we got somebody that wants to work, put the effort in, we'll find a way. We'll get you into the camp. Let us know how we can help. Let us know some of the things that you do as parents and coaches that help inspire these kids to get a little better. Or maybe some of your kids make a comment. Let us know about what's been the thing that's helped affect you. Was it somebody else getting canned? Was it just listening to the coach? What is it that helps get you going and keep you on that page to become that Strength of America athlete that we all know dominate out there on the field. So appreciate being a part of the family. We're going to see you soon. Look for how to eat like an athlete.
See you later.
Thanks.